joining us here in the Idea Lab. I'm Neely McQueen, and I'm here with Chap Clark, one of the godfathers of youth ministry. Is that sensitive for me to say?
Doug's sitting right over there. Don't say that in front of Doug.
I won't say that in front of him, but I'm going to say
He's
it to
the real
you.
godfather.
You've been around for a while. Tell us a little bit about your role right now. What are you doing to help us in youth ministry?
I work at Fuller Seminary, and we have master's programs and doctoral programs and have a great time working with CarePal and a few others. I'm on faculty there, and I'm an administrator with those guys. And I also work with a thing called Parent Teen, where we do parenting seminars and tell people how to understand youth culture.
That's great. We talk a lot about in youth ministry this term adolescent, and we throw it around, but what exactly does that mean?
It's kind of a weird word because we use student, we use kids, we use teenagers, but the technical term actually is this term, you're not a child anymore and you're not an adult. And in the middle, you become what's called an adolescent, which by definition, we've learned this the last 100 years of studying this stuff, that you are now responsible to become an adult. Your job is to insert yourself into adulthood. And up until about 100 years ago, there really wasn't such a thing as adolescence. You moved from childhood to adulthood. You were surrounded by community, and they helped you to become an adult. For a lot of years and a lot of reasons, we have now put that on kids, that they have to insert themselves into adulthood. So that's essentially what all of us in youth ministry are dealing with.
That's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure on kids. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
So you talk about these three stages. How, as youth ministries, do we come along these three stages?
What I get to do for a job is to get to study what people say who are both believers and just in the general world. And what virtually everybody has agreed to is as adolescence has come on the scene, early on we noticed there were kind of two stages of adolescence. There was what's called early adolescence, which is before your brain shifts from child to an adult. So an early adolescent is average age of puberty until your brain begins to shift. That's roughly 13 or so, to about 14, 15. And then you're a late adolescent, and that's how it always was. Early adolescence, where we can call middle school. Late adolescence was high school till about the mid-90s, almost 20 years ago. We realized this thing called adolescence had lengthened. We don't have time to talk about that today, but as it lengthened, we now have three stages. We have early, which is where your brain's still the brain of a child. You're a child growing up. You're in early adolescence. The brain begins to shift from concrete to abstract, but that process takes about 10 years. So adolescence now goes from about 11 years old, average age of puberty, till for women, mid to late 20s. And I'm not making this up, you guys. This is what all the literature says. And for men, mid to late 50s, that sucker goes on and on. We call that fantasy football and youth ministry are the two things that kind of prove that. So there's now these three stages, because an early adolescent is unique, and then mid-adolescence is unique, and late adolescence, which is now called emerging adulthood, because it sounds so cool and cocoonish, that's what we deal with the third stage.
That's really, really interesting that it's lengthened so much and made youth ministry kind of longer.
Well, youth ministry still seems to, most of us still seem to have in our mind that if you're 25, you are 10 years since your freshman year, depending on what denomination you are, okay? Some of you still may be in high school at 25 is a whole different issue from, different parts of the country. And if we think what we went through is the same as what kids are going through, we're going to make a mistake in our ministry. And we need to understand the changing dynamics of culture, how that's affecting kids, and about these three different stages and the dynamics of those stages.
Earlier you said when you talked about adolescents now are forced to do it on their own.
Right.
Before you said the community came around them.
Right.
How do we get back to that idea in the church?
Oh man, that is what everything we're working with. I'm part of I'm the chair of the Department of Youth, Family, and Culture in School of Theology. So I'm one person among many that are working in Sticky Faith that Kara kind of is our mouthpiece for. So Sticky Faith, the work that I'm doing in adopting kids, we need to rethink youth ministry. Has to be about how do we get the church to care about the young, not just the paid youth pastor or the volunteers. So the point is really to get the whole church to say, whether you're 8 years old or 12 or 15 or 25, you are part of us. We have a lot to learn from kids, and we have a lot to give to kids, and it's called social capital. It's adults that are invested in young people. So we got to get the whole church to invest in them, and that'll help.
Can you tell us how to do that? How do we get the whole church?
It's closing prayer. It's been an amazing time. Thank you. No idea. That's why Doug Fields is among us, because that's kind of true, actually, but we'll keep... So yes, I can tell you how to do that. That's why I write.
Okay.
Okay, no, keep going.
So these 3 stages, this idea that we need the whole church to come alongside these 3 stages, but it looks different at each stage, right? Like the conversation we're having changes.
Okay, and here's really important. If those of you guys that are read the brain studies or listen to people that have been reading things, the best people to read are those that integrate the brain studies with an understanding of psychosocial realities, of counseling, of understanding the social dynamics, because it's absolutely clear it's not just the physiology of the brain and the biology of it, it is the social interactions that have a huge influence on the brain. And those social interactions have been eroding over especially the last 3 or 4 decades. There are so few adults that spend time talking to kids, being with them. So that's why adolescence is lengthening, bottom line. Early adolescence, because you don't abstractly begin to realize, I get a third-person view of the world. That's what abstraction is. If you play video games, and I know no youth workers do play video, but if you play video games and you play first person, what's right in front of me, that's early adolescent. Well, how do you treat an early adolescent? You guys doing middle school ministry, here's what you do. You're dealing with a person that has the brain of a child and the body of an adult. So if you realize that a 7th grader is not a lot different in their abilities in the brain as a 4th grader, and their longing is for safety and something really concrete, that's how you do middle school ministry, okay? You don't try to give them these abstract ideas, love people, be kind, care for your parents. It's much more tactile. It's much more real. What does it mean to be honest with your parents? That's much better teaching for middle school kids. Then once the abstraction starts to kick in about 9th grade, till about 20 on average, that's mid-adolescence. And here's the defining characteristic of mid-adolescent. Egocentric abstraction. Any of you guys that have been around high school kids for years, maybe you won't agree with this, but this is what our research has shown, what I'm convinced of, is I'm now aware, third person, that I impact others by what I do and what I say and my attitudes. But I don't care. I mean, they care, but they care in a way that says, I want you to like me. So it's an egocentric caring. It doesn't mean high school kids aren't marvelous and gifted and sharp and have a bunch to offer us. But they don't know who they are. They're not sure what kind of voice they have. They don't know who cares. And so as adolescence lengthens, this period from 14 to 20 is a period of trying to really, I have to watch my own back. So they adapt to the adults around them and the systems, English teacher, coach, youth pastor, small group leader, parent. All these people have agendas. And the mid-adolescent's trying to figure out who am I going to please, how am I going to please them, and that's egocentric abstraction. So what you have to do for a middle adolescent, when you're dealing with high school or young college, the key is come alongside, care, offer safety, listen carefully, look them in the eye, value who they are, so the Holy Spirit partners on the inside with the support we're giving them on the outside. And let God take care of that discipleship process, and we simply love them, not force them to perform.
Super insightful.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's really insightful. So if you're watching this and you're like, I'm interested, I need to know more, tell me a couple of resources that I should dig into. Or websites I should check out.
Look, say here, yeah, okay, so you're going to make me talk about the stuff that I write, right? That's what you're saying.
Tell me your books. I want to buy them right now.
I've been studying adolescence through what's called ethnography deeply for about 12 years. And the book is called Hurt 2.0 now. It was originally Hurt. And it basically talks about what kids are going through and why they feel the way they do. And it's really important to understand that all kids feel the pressure of performance and conformity. Sticky Faith and all the Sticky Faith work, I did the original book with Kara, is something to help us try to figure out what does it mean to come alongside them. And then for parents, a book called Disconnected to help parents to understand these 2 stages, especially to help kids. Not a lot of people are bringing together the various areas of study, and that's part of my own background training. That's what we do at Fuller Seminary, is we pull together various different silos of disciplines and study in order to fully understand what we're dealing with, and that's what I work on.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, this is so fast.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much, and thank you guys for joining us here at Idea Lab.